Hello, welcome back to another video. This will probably be the most random location that I've ever created a video for my car focused YouTube channel. As you can see, look at this place. Absolutely stunning. The point of this video is just going to be a real quick update on the engine situation, because I left the last one on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I think that it'll be good to just give you a bit of an update. So as it happens, we don't actually think the engine does need to come out, thankfully. We think that we found the problem, although we won't actually know what the problem is until we pull the bottom end out. That's the challenge. As I alluded to in the last video, I didn't give this away, there is what can only be described as catastrophic oil consumption. To give you some context on what I mean by catastrophic, the distance from my place in central Manchester to George's is about 7 miles. In those 7 miles, my engine went from the max oil level to the minimum, which I think is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 litres of oil, which is absolutely shocking. It's terrible. And at first we thought that it might have been because the piston rings were new and they just needed to seat and whatever, but there is no rational explanation for that level of oil consumption. So the only thing that we can suggest is, well, there's two things actually. There's two things that we think could be the problem here. Cause number one is potentially my fault, and those of you who've watched the older videos of the engine reassembly stuff will remember that I purchased second-hand pistons. Now, this has been done millions of times before. Plenty of people have done it, right? The risk that you've got is that on a piston, pretty certain in saying that all pistons are the same insofar as they've got 3 grooves on them. I'll put a picture over here just to illustrate this point. Pistons have got 3 grooves on them. The top 2 are compression rings. So you have 3 piston rings in total in a set, and the top 2 grooves in a piston are for compression rings. So they seal compression. The bottom one is for oil, because the top part of the cylinder is where you have air and fuel, which then gets ignited. That creates compression, that creates power. Underneath the piston, you have oil. So that lives in the crank, right? And that's what keeps things lubricated. That oil comes up through holes in the piston. It then travels through these little ridges, these perforated stuff on the piston ring, and that then lubricates the side of the cylinder bore to prevent it from overheating and all that kind of stuff. On second-hand pistons, most of the time, top 2 rings don't wear out. And when I say wear out, I mean there's a gap, right? From top to bottom, it's tiny. I think it's about 2 mil, 1.5, 2 mil, something like that. Over time, they wear out. The top 2 less so, but the bottom one, the oil control ring, that does wear out over time. And what that means is, because we're thinking about tolerances that are absolutely tiny here, like, 10,000ths of an inch in some cases, if a piston has been exposed to, let's say 150, 200,000 miles, which, there's no shortage of M54 engines which have done that, then the clearances in that little groove in the bottom ring on the piston will increase. Now what that means is that the piston ring, the oil control ring that allows oil to go out of the bore, will move up and down too much. And what that means is that oil from beneath the piston in the crankcase can then travel up, and because there's an overwhelming amount of it, it goes past the piston rings and then sits on top of the piston. That's then in the combustion chamber, meaning it ignites and burns off, creating lots of smoke. And so the reason we think that that could be the cause is because we put a boroscope into the spark plug bore after removing the spark plugs, and we could see that there was oil pooling on top of the pistons. Not much, a little bit, but enough for it to be a concern. Like, there shouldn't be any there, right? So anything more than nothing is something in this case. So we saw that and thought, oh, okay, maybe that's the thing. So that's option 1. Option 2 is similar but different. Option 2 could be still piston ring related, but another known problem is that M54B30 oil control rings, so again that same bottom ring on the piston, are known to cause oil consumption problems. And this would be exaggerated on a high mileage piston. Even if the high mileage piston is still within tolerance, there could still be a mismatch between standard M54 oil control rings and the piston itself. It might not provide a great seal, because this is so technical. I'd be surprised if anyone's still watching this, but I actually find it interesting. The rings themselves, all piston rings are like a circle which has got a slit in it, and it's almost like sprung, right? So there's tension that pushes outwards, which then seals against the cylinder bore. And it's known that standard M54B30 rings don't have that much tension, they don't push out that much, which is why a known fix that a lot of people have done is to take M52TU, the TU on the back end of that means technical update. That means BMW changed it over time, right? The M52 engine, so that would consist of, I believe, 2.3, 2.5, 2.8, still uses the same cylinder bore, which is an 84mm bore, meaning you can use the oil control ring from the M52 in the M54 engine because it fits, and it's got a much higher tension value, so it pushes out more against the side of the bore. But you can't use the compression rings. It's so, I find this stuff so funny how somebody's figured this out. The grooves in the top two things of the piston, so the compression rings, are different. So you can't use M52 compression rings. You can use M52 oil control ring, and it's beneficial to do that because it's a more sophisticated design that lets less oil up through the piston, meaning there's less oil consumption even in a healthy engine. And that's what I've done. That's what I've decided to do. So I was kind of on the fence, right? My decision criteria was, you know, my whole intention for this car was to build it so that I could go to shows. As I film this, it's, I think, like the 8th of July. Summer show season is basically done. Like, there's not going to be that much else. So when this happened, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, is it even worth me proceeding with this? Should I just take the car off the road? Because the MOT's expired now. Yeah, yesterday. MOT expired yesterday, so I was thinking, is it even worth it? Shall I just pull the car off the road, declare it sawn, pull the engine out, and just go all in and just fully forge it and, you know, give it 6-12 months and not apply pressure to it, which is easier to do now that I bought myself a daily, which I haven't spoken about because who the fuck cares about a Hyundai i10? However, I spoke to George a couple of days ago, and he has spoken to his connections who build these kind of things all the time, and they've said, look, this is actually quite normal. I know it's frustrating, I know it's not annoying, but it's actually quite normal. These things happen quite frequently. So what you can do, instead of having to pull the engine out again, which, you know, if you've ever done it, it's a lot of work, right? It's not like a straightforward job. It's a lot. He said what you can do is you can take the head off, which is still a big job, but not as big as pulling an engine. Then you can take the sump off, which is a bit fiddly because the front subframe gets in the way, but you can do it. With the sump off, you can then pull pistons out one by one, so you can push them up out from the head, well, still the block, but the head end, the top end of the block, you can push them up from underneath, therefore meaning that you don't need to take, you know, the crankshaft out, you don't need to do loads of that stuff that you've seen in other videos if you've watched them, which is beneficial. And I thought, you know what, if I could drive the car 5-10 times whilst the weather is still nice, I mean, this is this or is this not perfect driving weather? And being here in Wales, I was thinking to myself, I'd love to have a car here. So I decided to do that. For the sake of spending 120 quid on piston rings, it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. And here's what I'm going to do. When we take the pistons out, I want to measure them, because there are, I'll put something on the screen now that I found in research. I forget what the number is, but there's certain tolerances, right? So if the gap is more than X on the oil control ring, bin them, pistons are done, they're dead. If it's less than that, it will be okay, which should be in theory. So we're going to pull the pistons out without having to pull the engine out. We're going to try the M52TU piston or the oil control rings in the bottom, if they're in spec. If they're not in spec, the engine's coming out and I'm going all in, and we're gonna build the fucking dream car, which is I'd imagine what you probably want. However, what I don't want is this to just be a channel where I'm just infinitely building something and you never get to see me drive it, because that's the most exciting part. It's why we fucking do it. Like, yeah, it's cool to build these cars, but ultimately what I want is to drive it and use it and enjoy it, like really enjoy it. And it was heartbreaking, actually. It was heartbreaking to see the car looking so fucking great, sat at a proper level with the engine in, like the weight pressing down, no massive arch gap because it had no engine in it. And when I drove it back from George's to mine and then back from mine to George's, it felt amazing. It felt so good with the new short shifter, the new clutch, engine mounts, gearbox mounts. Like, everything felt amazing, and it'd just be such a shame to not actually use it. So that's the plan, and I think that we will be getting started pretty soon. The piston rings should arrive this weekend. Bear in mind today's Wednesday as I'm filming this, and then fuck off, mate. So I don't think that we'll get to work this weekend. It will probably be next week by the time we actually get started on this next phase of the build. But because we're not pulling the engine out, like realistically, we should be able to flip it in 2-3 days, there or thereabouts. Then it's got to go for MOT. I've got to find a friendly MOT tester because it's got a screamer and no cat and whatever. So I'll find a friendly one. It then still needs to be aligned. It then needs the wheels balanced. It needs, I want to get the wheels painted, and then it's pretty much good to go. So yeah, that's what the plan is with the car. I'm in Wales because my day job, as I said in another video, is coaching and consulting, and one of my clients wanted me to come down and deliver an in-person workshop, which is what I did today. It was amazing, really, really enjoyable. And I had planned to go home on the train today. So I got the train down here yesterday, which was like 5 hours. And the second I stepped off the train and like smelt the air and saw, I was like, you know what? I want to spend more time here. It's like so calming and needed for me, actually, after a very intense period of building the car. I worked so hard. I wasn't even doing most of the work. George was doing a lot of the work, but I was still staying late and, grafting, not sleeping much. And it's just made my mind so active. And when I stepped off the train, it just felt like calm. Everything was all right. So I decided to sacrifice whatever I paid for the return ticket. My dog's at a kennel, and I phoned them up and said, can you keep him another night, please? And then found an Airbnb, which I'll put some videos over the top now so you can see it. It's absolutely stunning. It's incredible, in the middle of nowhere. So peaceful, so calm. And I thought I'd just spend another night here and just enjoy it, So I'm not filming this on my usual camera. Hadn't really intended to film it, but this is such a lovely spot where I am, just sat at this reservoir. So peaceful and so calming, and I'm appreciating it. So that's where we're at. Thank you for watching. Hopefully it will be next week by the time we're able to pull these pistons out and test it, and fingers crossed, that means we can then drive it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. See you next time.